So hello and welcome back to a new episode of Code Savvy. So very recently, one of my dear friends came to me and said that he needed an AI tool which would tell him how good his shortlisted stocks were. So he is into stocks. He wanted to invest his money into stocks, and he was inquiring with me whether there is some way whereby he could ask the AI whether the stocks that he has shortlisted are good enough. So he needed an initial level of validation. After that, he needed the AI to do some deep research on the stocks and give him back some findings, whether it's good, whether it's a good buy, whether and if he has already bought it, whether he should sell it. Additionally, he also wanted this list of stocks to be editable. So essentially, he could just go in and change change that list and execute the AI tool, which would give him the results. So this was his use case. I found it very interesting, and I did come up with a solution for him, which I am going to share with you today. So let's see what I came up with. Now, one of the most obvious solutions to this particular use case is to use an AI automation workflow tool, something like n8n, which is exactly what we'll be using for our case here. So what I plan to do here is we would be defining an AI agent node using an n8n, which would be triggered either on a chat message or later we will then change it to actually take inputs from a Google Sheet, which would contain the stocks in different rows, the stocks that we are interested in. As its brain, I would be selecting an open source model. And remember, this is just for the initial setup. So I'll be using something like Llama 3.1 70B-Instruct, which is quite a capable open source model to do some basic research. And based on its recommendations, I would then ask the AI agent to write back its findings to the Google Sheet that it actually read. So it would update the same sheet there. And just a point to note here is that for the models, to select the models, I would be using OpenRouter. Now, those of you who are not aware of what OpenRouter is, it is a one-stop API gateway for LLM models. Essentially, you could just use one set of credentials that OpenRouter provides, and then you could pick up from a wide variety of LLM models that you wanted to use there. So we would be using OpenRouter, and I'll show you how to do this. Now, this was our first step. As for our second step, what we would be doing is we would enhance this model a bit more. What by enhancing, what I mean there is that I would be then changing the model to a paid version of OpenAI ChatGPT 4, which is which is enough as its brain, and I would be providing it with a very powerful tool for doing some deep research, something like Sonar from Perplexity, which is quite powerful, which does some really comprehensive research on the data that it is provided there. And based on what Sonar Deep Research actually sends back to OpenAI, it will be written back to the input sheet that we provide. Now let us start by first firing up n8n. Now you have two versions of n8n. So you would have a cloud version, which is a paid version, which is, I wouldn't say exactly economical, but you have a choice whereby you could self-host it. Now, the way you could self-host is through a Docker installation. So I would be using that. It gives us a lot of leeway, and essentially it's the same tool, but you would be hosting it in your local computer there. Now, this is the page where you can find the Docker installation there, docs.n8n.io slash hosting slash installation slash Docker. Don't worry about the actual link. I would be sharing this in the video description below there. So we would be using Docker installation there. Okay. And how the YAML file, once you set it up, would look like is something like this. Now, there's no need for you to worry about the actual contents in this Docker file. But if you're so inclined, I will be sharing this in the GitHub repo, the link to which again I'll be sharing in the video description below. So just go through it. It is well commented, the code, and you can easily understand it. So let us fire this up and see what happens. I'll open the terminal. So I'll start a new terminal there. So by the way, I'm using a Windows system. You could just use your command prompt, and I'm using Visual Code as my IDE. So I would be running my commands from Visual Code, but feel free to run it from your command prompt. It basically should work, right? And the command to fire up a Docker Compose YAML file containing an n8n is quite simple. It's a standard command, docker-compose space up. And it should be up and running. Okay, so it says it's up and running. Let's give it a minute for it to settle down. Yeah, wait till you see this message that the editor is now accessible via localhost colon 5678. So now if you copy this and if you open your, it would bring you to something like this there. Now, since I've already signed in and created an account, it would not ask me to create it again. But if this is the first time that you're using n8n, it would ask you to create an account there. Just give your email ID. It will give you an activation key, a free activation key, which would be sent to your email, which you copy paste, and then you can go to your n8n settings and just activate your lifetime free license since you're hosting it locally there. So just log in with whatever credentials you have created. Let me do that. Once you have logged in, it brings you to your dashboard. Uh, Now, since I'm already been using it, you would find some workflows that I've already created there. For you, it should be blank if it's the first time that you're using it there. And for the activation key, if you're a first time user and you have got your activation key in the email ID that you have provided, what you need to do is you need to go into your account, which is on your left hand side there. So it would be along with the name here. Click on it, click on the three dots, go to settings, usage and plan, and there you find something called enter activation key. Click on it, enter the key, and voila, you are done. Okay. So let me go back here and let me now click on the create workflow, which would essentially open up a new page for me, which is called the canvas, a new blank canvas, which I can use to create a new workflow here. And this is where I'll be defining my workflows. So let's do that. Let us create a chat trigger node. So let me click on this symbol. So the plus icon, the first symbol there, and just search for chat trigger. Okay. So this is the configuration page of the chat trigger. Basically, you do not do anything here. You just go back to the canvas, click there, and you have your chat node ready. Now let us add the AI agent. For that, you click on the plus symbol next to your chat trigger node. So it would, let me just move my video to this side here. Okay. And on the search panel on the right hand side, you just search for AI agent. Right. So this would be your AI agent. Click on it. For the time being, just put the default for the configuration page. Go back there, and you can see you have your AI agent connected to your chat message trigger node there. Now let us add our chat model. Right? If you remember, I said we would be using open routers, and that is what we'll be doing here. So click on this plus symbol, which is labeled chat model there, and search for open router. Yeah, so you have your open router chat model there. Now, once you do this, it will ask you for your credentials there. And this is what we'll set up. So we need to set up our open router credentials, and I'll show you how to do it. To set up OpenRouter API keys, go to openrouter.ai/settings slash preferences. If it's the first time that you're logging in, obviously it will ask you to create some credentials so you can use your Google account to create a new account in OpenRouter there. Once you're inside OpenRouter and you come to this page here, you can click on API keys there, and you just need to create an API key. Now remember, creating an API key is not enough. You would need some credit to your account. So go to your credits and add some money to it. Essentially, buy some credits. $5 should be more than enough. It will last you a long time there. So once you have generated your API keys, copy it and keep it in a safe place. Once you have generated your API keys, click on this drop down here and click on create new credential, right? And this is where you need to copy paste your Open Router API key provided to you. Since I've already created my credentials, I'll just be using the one that I'm already using, the Open Router account, so I don't need to create it again and again. Now, if you notice on the model drop down, you have a whole variety of models to choose from. And the model that we would be choosing is Llama 3.1-70B-Instruct. So let's search for it. So let's scroll up. You can see it has countless number of models around. Yeah, this belongs to Meta Llama. So we are on Meta Llama. Let me see. Then this should be the model that you're interested in. The Llama 3.1-70B Instruct. You can choose 8B Instruct, but just for vetting, this is more than enough. Okay. So add that. Okay. And let us now go back to our canvas. And you can now see that the error message that you had previously, you had a sort of into mark that has now disappeared because now you have essentially provided your AI agent with the right configuration and the right credentials. Now let us test this out. So let us open the chat and let us say, hi, uh, is Tata Power a good stock to buy? Now remember, yeah, you can see that this flow is working. So let's wait for the output. Now remember, we have not actually provided any system prompt to our AI agent telling it what it's supposed to do. So let's see what it actually brings back without any system prompt. And it has given us back an answer which shows that our flow is working. So it says, okay, let me enlarge this. Tata Power is a well-established company in India power sector. It gives some pros, it gives some cons, recent performance. So it brings back a whole load of information that you wanted to process there, right? So even without a good system prompt, this actually works quite well. We will be giving it a system prompt, by the way, when we actually attach it to the Google Sheet tool there. So we'll see how to do that next. Now let me collapse this and let us try attaching Google Sheet to this whole flow there. So what I'll do is I will delete the chat trigger node and I'll go and I will actually say, click on this and I will say, I'll move my video here and I'll click on trigger manually, right? So essentially I want to trigger things manually. I don't want it to be scheduled or anything. So let me click on the plus symbol beside trigger manually. And here I will just search for Google Sheets. And within here, I would need to choose what I want the AI agent to do. So I can ask it to append a row, clear the sheet, create a sheet, delete a sheet. Here I just need it to read data. For this node, I just need to get some data within the rows in the sheet. So I will click on Get Rows in Sheet, and it straight away brings me to the configuration page here. Now this is where you will actually need to configure your Google Cloud Console parameters so that your n8n flow, your agent can actually access that sheet that you have created. So let us see how to do that. Now, if you go to your n8n documentation there, so you go to docs.n8n.io/integrations. Within that, you would find a whole lot of documentation regarding different integrations, how you can integrate with different applications and stuff like that. Essentially, what you would need to go through is the Google OAuth 2 single service or the generic one there. So this actually details how you could connect your Google tools to your n8n flow there. And I'm just mentioning this just in case you wanted the documentation and you're lost and you wanted to refer back on what we are actually doing. So here it now clearly says you actually need to create a Google Cloud Console project. Okay, so this is the first step that you have to do. If you have not created a Cloud Console project, go and do it. It's absolutely free there. Though I think it might ask your credit card information, but do not worry. It does not actually charge you anything. At least it does not charge you for what we are trying to do. Okay, so feel free to share your credit information there. Don't be afraid of doing that. Essentially, create a project there, and it then says you need to enable your APIs. So it is quite detailed on what you need to do. Then you need to configure your OAuth consent screen. It gives a whole lot of steps on how you can do that. And then it says that you create your Google OAuth client credentials. This is what we'll be using in our n8n Google Sheet node there. Okay. So this is my Google project there on my Google Cloud Console there. So it's called my first project. It would be called the same for if I wanted, I could just have changed it there. From there, as the documentation says, you just need to go to your APIs and services. Once you click on that, it would bring you to this page here. So on the left hand side, you can see you have some enabled APIs, services, libraries, credentials, OAuth consent screen. This is where you need to actually go into. And it actually says uh, right now, today I've not done anything. So it gives you a view of how you have used your credentials there. So what all calls have been made to a particular application within Google that is under your name, by the way. So this is your Google Auth platform dashboard there. And within here, what you need to do is you need to go to your clients, this one here, and you can see I've already some clients created there. And you just need to create a new client. Okay. So if you click on that, it will ask you what is your application type. So for us, this is a web application. Can give it any name you want. Okay, so it makes sense you give it something related to n8n or the research that you're trying to do there. And then it would ask you some redirect URLs. So this is something that you need to provide. So from where do you get this? For that, go back to your Google Sheet configuration node, the configuration page for that node. And what you would need to do here is since why I'm being shown Google Sheets account is because I have already created the account, but in your case, this should be something like create new credentials. Click on that, right? And this is where you'll be actually providing your client ID and client secret, which is what we're generating right now. And right here, you have your OAuth redirect URL. Copy paste this. Okay, we'll come back to this page later. and go to your Cloud Console, and on your redirect URLs URI, this is where you just add that. Okay, just like that. Now this is a very important step that you should not miss, otherwise your flow will not work, because essentially your AI agent would not know which OAuth credentials it should actually call back to in order to validate your OAuth credentials, right? So it would not know where to actually go. So this is what you would actually have to give as your redirect URIs. Do not forget that. And once you're done this, just click on create, and that's it. You get your client ID, your client secret, your creation date. Now, this is not something you should be sharing. Okay, so keep it very safe and secret. I will not be using this, so I'll be deleting this immediately, as I have already created this credentials there. But in your case, once you've created it, keep it safe and do not share it. One more thing that you would actually need to configure here is you would need to configure the audience. So essentially, the email IDs or the users who are validated. So essentially, users who can use this OAuth. So just add your email here, your essentially which is your Google account. Now, once you have your credentials created, go back to your configuration node for Google Sheets. So I'm still on my. So let me just close this. Okay. So this is what I've chosen. Okay, create new credentials, just so that you do not get confused there. So click on the create new credentials. And this is where you would actually pop in your client ID and client secret. Once you have done that, a pop-up should appear from Google asking you to give your consent to what n8n can actually access. So give the required accesses there. Probably you would need to give access to everything that it actually asks for this whole flow to work. And once you are done, okay, you save it, and that is what you'll be using as your credentials. So since I've not actually entered here anything, because I've already created my credentials, I'm not going to enter anything new here. So I'll just close this. Okay, and I'll use the credentials that I've already created. You should see, if you have created it successfully, you should see that the Google connection was tested successfully or something similar on those lines there. Okay. Now, once you have successfully established the connection with your Google account there, right? So you, as I said, you should be seeing something like your connection was successfully set up or something along those lines. You would need to then come in and actually select the Google Sheet that you're interested in there, right? So here on the resource, you can see a variety of options. You can have a document. So if you give a document, you actually need can actually create a spreadsheet if you wanted, because you have given that permissions, or if you had given that permissions, you could create the document. But since I've already created the document, which I'll show you in a minute, I'll just say sheet within the document. My operation is get rows, right? So I'm not going to uh, create or append any rows right now. So I'm just going to get the data that is already there. So I'll just select get rows. And if my configuration is correct, if I've configured everything correctly, on this particular drop down, that is the document, I can just choose from list. I can either give the URL or the ID there, okay, uh, which I'll tell you in a minute how you can get the URL and ID if you wanted to do it that way. But the easiest way is you just select your list there, and then if you're configured it correctly, your Google Sheets, whatever you have created, should appear here. So you can see I have quite a few Google Sheets available here. And the one that I'll be choosing is Open Search Research, right? And then it says which sheet do I need from the document. So remember, this is a sort of it's the same, right? If you think about it, Excel and Google Sheets are pretty much the same thing. So you could have different sheets within your document. So which sheet do you want? So again, it gives me an option of either I can choose from a list based on this what is there, or I can give the URL and ID or the name. So I'll just choose from the list, and I have just one sheet there which is called stocks. Okay, and the remaining things will remain exactly the same. I'm not going to change anything here. Now let me have a look at my Google Sheet and see how that actually looks. Let me show that to you guys. So this is the Google Sheet that I had created. I've already created, and I have some stocks that I've listed out there. So these are some random stocks that I had selected. I've given the full name of the stock there, just so that our AI model does not get confused and it actually picks up the right company name there on what I'm interested. And I have given it under the column stock name. I have also provided it column named findings, which is where it will actually output its or uh, findings to, and whether I should buy it or I should avoid buying it, and if I've already bought it, should I hold it or should I sell it. So these are the sort of recommendations that I would be expecting from my AI agent. Now let's see how this whole thing works. So now let me go back to my canvas. So I click here, right, and I can see. So let me drag this here. Okay, this is my Google sheet. I can rename it. Okay, so let me just rename it input stocks, right? And let me just join it to my AI agent node here, right? And now I need to configure my AI agent so that it now understands what data is actually coming in. So let me go to my AI agent. Let me just double click it. And the output that you see is from the previous node there. So it actually doesn't have any input to actually say what it needs to do. Okay, I understand what it needs to do there. So let me just execute this step. Okay, so that it has some data that it can now understand. Now you will see that the output does not have anything. It does not have anything because we have not told the AI agent what it needs to do with that data there. Because previously in our chat, when we used the chat trigger node, we had told it exactly what we wanted to do. So we had told it to take this stock, okay, say Tata Motors, and see whether it's a good investment or not, or something similar on those lines. Right now, we have just given it a sheet. It doesn't know what to do. But once we clicked on the execute step, it brought back this is what is available in this stock. So if you remember, we had our stock name, findings, buy, slash avoid, hold, sell. So all those things that we had shown it is available there. Sorry, okay, on the input. Now let us configure our AI agent so that it knows what it needs to do. So, so what I would do here is on this particular entry, this is the source for prompt user message. I'll click on the drop down and I'll say define below because we're not using the chat trigger mode anymore. So I have to actually define it. So what is the source that it needs to analyze or investigate? And what I'll do is from my left hand side pane, I will just hover on the stock name. I'll do a left click and I'll just drag that here, right? So once you drag and drop it, automatically it becomes in a formatted n8n formatted method there. And you can see it already has brought me a result as well. So this is a value that is just one of the values that will be in this field. That's what it tells me. So this is the field that I needed to actually use. Okay. Now let me also define a system prompt for it. Okay. So if I click on add option, I will have a system message. Let me click on this and let me just uh, define the system message. I'll read it out to you. Okay. So I'm saying you're a helpful financial advisor who is an expert in analyzing market conditions. You have been given a spreadsheet and the stock name that needs analysis. Your job is to use the provided tool and recommend whether the stock is a good buy or not, and whether you should hold it or sell. You will output the results in the findings column. You will also summarize whether to buy or avoid and tag it as hash buy or hash avoid, and will output the result in the buy slash avoid column. You will also summarize whether to hold or sell and tag it with hash hold or hash sell and output the result in the hold slash sell column. Now, for those of you who would be wondering why we need this tags hash sell, hash buy, hash avoid, it is because you would need it to actually define the expression by which the your AI agent can understand what it needs to take from the findings and output it to the relevant column there. We will see it in a minute. Don't worry about it too much. Right, so let me go back to my canvas, and what we'll now essentially do is let us try to complete this flow here. Okay, so I need to add in the output sheet as well, which is essentially the same sheet, but I want my AI agent to write out its findings and its recommendations to that sheet there. So let's see how to do that. Okay, so I click on this part here. Okay, and I would again search for Google Sheets, and this time what I need to do is I need to append or update row in the sheet. So I need to append to data that's already there. So let me just create that. Okay, select that, not create that. And I'll be selecting my same account which I had set up earlier. And let me move this my video to my left hand side there. And Google Sheets account, yeah, I'll be using that. I'll be using the sheet within my document there. So that doesn't change. Operation is append or update row, which is fine. The document, right. Yeah, which reminds me, um, if you say you wanted to actually specify the URL or the ID of the sheet rather than the list, the way you could do it is if you go back to your sheet there, let me find my sheet. Let me find my sheet. Yeah, it's right here. Okay. So if you look at the URL of your Google Sheet, right after this D slash, you have your sheet ID, right? So it's between your D slash and between your slash edit. So that is what is your sheet ID, okay, or your document ID, not your sheet ID. Your document ID is just 0, okay? So that's it. And if you want your actual sheet name, that is what you've named it here. So you can, if you wanted, you could just rename it to something else, and that is what you have to use. I have just used stocks, so that is your sheet ID. This is just for information, by the way. So I'm back on the configuration page, and I'm not going to choose the URL or ID, okay? So I'm just going to select the same sheet, okay? And of course, the document, sorry, the document and the sheet is the same, okay? Now it brings me the mapping column mode. So it automatically populates that. So I leave it at map each column manually. Now I want info on how I can map it, right? So what should be in the stock name, what should be in the findings, what should be in the buy avoid, hold cell there. And the way I could do is let me select columns to match on. So this is the column that I want to match on, the stock name. Now to get some data, just let me execute this step, okay, the previous node, so that pulls in some data and I can just drag and drop it. Since we have quite a big list, it's taking some time. So it took a couple of minutes there, and you'll straight away see there's error on the output. Don't mind it for the time being because we have not yet finished the flow. We have not defined what it needs to match on. This is what exactly it says. The column to match on is required. We have not actually said what it needs to match on there, right? And this is where now we'll be defining what needs to go into what column. Okay, so the stock name. So let's just click on the left hand panel. Just let me click on this. So this is what goes here. Okay, and you can straight away see it comes as an expression there. And what I want now is my findings. Okay, so findings directly goes into this column here because this is the actual comprehensive finding of the AI agent. So there's no need for me to manipulate here or anything. The next two columns, the buy slash avoid and the hold slash sell, it's not that straightforward. We have to define the expression there. Okay, so we'll just take this expression there and we will say what needs to be in that column. And the way you can do it is here. So if you look into the output, okay, so let me just click here. So there are uh, right. Let me click on the table here. You can see there are, say, 8 outputs. And if you go through these outputs one by one, you'll straight away see after some uh, reasoning on whether what this talk is all about. It says that for buy and avoid, okay, it gives star star slash avoid colon star star. It says hash avoid. If you remember, we had instructed our AI agent to actually tag it with a hash, its findings, and this is exactly what it says. Okay, so it's giving us hash cell. Now you'll see why how it is useful to us since we hashtagged it. We can directly use this in our expression. And this is how I'll use it. Okay, so it's two curly braces dollar JSON dot output dot includes. Once you start understanding the syntax, it's actually quite easy. I'm saying if the value of output includes something like hash avoid, okay, then return avoid in this column, else you populate it with by. Okay, so it's a if else sort of condition that I have written here. So if you see in all these findings here, it would have something called either hash avoid or hash by, right? So this one is a hash by there. So when it comes to this particular row, what would happen here is this would actually evaluate to false this expression because the JSON dot output does not include hash avoid. It includes a hash by, and so the column would be populated with by. Simple logic as it is. Similarly for hold cell. So if you look into the data there, so one of the rows it has hash cell. So similarly, another has hash. So that's by avoid. Sorry, let me see. Okay, this one has hash hold there, right? So a very similar expression to what we did for by slash avoid here is okay, make sure that this goes green. Okay, if it does not go green, just type it. So sometimes it happens there. So let me just type it there. So I'll just say dollar dot JSON dot output. Okay, dot includes right? And then I'll see. So it very helpfully suggests what should be there after that. Okay, and what I need here is if it says okay, if it says let me just take hold for example. Okay, if it says hold, what I would do is I would just say okay, if it's a hold, hash hold, right? I would say yeah, you output it as hold, or if it's not hash hold, okay, you sell it. Simple enough, right? And now I think we're almost done there. So let's just execute this step again to see whether this actually works. Tell you what, let me just go back to my canvas here, okay, and just let me save this flow. Okay, so now this is saved. I can just put it as I can just rename it to demo, say, uh, let's call it wetting. Okay, because since this is the initial wetting step, we have not used any deep research tools till now. Now let me just execute this workflow, and fingers crossed. Okay, this should work. This will take a couple of minutes. Right, our flow has now completed. As you can see now, all the errors have disappeared. It has worked wonderfully well. If I click on the last node here, right. Ooh, the findings is empty. Though we did get a buy avoid. Let me see why the finding is empty. Oh, of course, it is empty because I'd actually tried to take something from findings, which is the actual output, right? So I cannot just map the output to the output and expect it to self-populate. So what I need here is this one, okay? The actual output. And why is it not? Let me try it. Okay, JSON dot. Right, let me try something else. Let me just put it as output. Okay, the whole thing. Yeah, that works, right? So essentially, the whole research that it did, I want it in that column there. Now let me just go back and execute it once more. Let me save it again and just let me execute this once more. Okay, let us give it a couple of minutes. And while this is executing, right, this should work. I'm hoping it should work. The next step would be we would be adding our OpenAI chat model, and then we would be giving it access to the Perplexity's deep research tool called Sonar. Okay, so that should be interesting. Let's see how that goes. Let us wait for this to complete though. Right, it took around a minute and a half there. Okay, let me just double click this to make sure. Yes, and now I have my findings. I have my buy, avoid, and just so that I'll double check. Yeah, so this finding is definitely avoid, and then as per our expression, it says avoid, and this one is sell, uh, and this should be sell. Yes. So it seems to be working fine. It has populated all the eight rows. Let me go to my Google Sheet to see whether it actually updated that, right? So let me go to my Google Sheet, and voila, I find my updated sheets there, right? So it says to avoid the first stock, if you have if you have bought it, sell it. Second, avoid, sell. Third is something it's saying you should buy, and if you have it, it's hold. It seems to be a good bet. This one, buy, hold, buy, hold, buy, hold. Okay, buy, hold. Yep, those seem to be pretty good bets, at least according to this. Now, remember, this is the initial vetting, right? We have not actually given it any specialized tools, and that is what we are going to do next. Let us see how to do that. So I'm back on an n8n. Let me go back to my canvas here. Okay, and just let me move my video to my left hand side. Let me duplicate this flow. Okay, so I'll just duplicate this and I'll say demo deep research. Now this is where we will actually do the deep research. So it should create the exact workflow for us. And if you wanted, you could just go back to your dashboard and play around with the old one. It's a good way of doing things, taking a backup there. What we'll now do is we will change our chat model here. Okay, so let me change my chat model quickly. So from instead of Llama 3.1, let me find OpenAI. Quite a few things here. Okay, let me just quickly go to, yeah, I think GPT 4.1. Let me just take 4.1 mini. Okay, so that works fine. And remember, I'm just using my Open Router account, Open Router credentials, so it allows me to do that, no problem at all. Go back to my canvas. I've changed the model, right? Let me click on save. Okay, now I'll add a tool to it. I don't need a memory here because essentially I'm not going to converse with it. You need a memory when you're actually chatting with your AI agent. Since this is not our use case, I don't need a memory for it. So I'll just put a tool there. Click on tool and now let us search for Perplexity. And you got the Perplexity tool, right? Now to use Perplexity, uh, unfortunately, you cannot use your open router's credentials. You would need a different set of credentials. You will need your Perplexity credentials to be set up, right? And the way you can do it is by creating a account in Perplexity .ai. Okay, once you've created it, you can use your Google credentials to create your account. Uh, Go to your API billing there, right, and add some credits. Now, Perplexity is not cheap. It is meant for doing some very detailed, comprehensive research and analysis. So it essentially is costly. Okay, and the other models, though it for the initial vetting it works fine. If you really were serious about investing money, I would strongly recommend you invest in tools which are serious about the data that it does analysis and it creates its models on. Perplexity is an excellent example of such a tool, right? So it has different models there. So if you go to the models page of Perplexity, right? So you can see some, so I am on docs.perplexity.ai, getting started models. It shows you different types of models that it has available. So it has a search model, okay, Sonar Pro, the reasoning model. Okay, what we are interested in is research. And right here it has Sonar Deep Research. This is the model that we'll be using. Now, bear in mind, uh, I'll reiterate that this is not a cheap model to use. This will cost you money. So what I'll do is instead of that 5 or 8 rows that I'd created previously, different stocks, I'll just use 2 stocks, okay? And I will do the n8n workflow using just those 2 rows there. And this will take some time because this does do some deep dive researches there. Let us continue setting up our key, right? So the Perplexity key. So once you have added some credits, quite simple. Just go to your API keys section and then just do a plus create key. It will generate the key. Keep it safe. Okay. Let me go back to n8n, and since I've already created the account, I've already set it up. It says use your existing Perplexity account. In your case, it would go to create new credentials where you need to provide your Perplexity key. Once you have provided it there, it would do a test connection. Make sure that your connection works fine. Okay, and just close it. I don't need this. Okay, and the tool description, I'll just say set automatically. Operation message a model of custom API call, which is fine. The model that I need to choose, okay, I will use Sonar Deep Research, as I said. Now for the messages, you could either type your custom message, but just to show you, okay, how powerful n8n as a tool is, you could just uh, and how Sonar is powerful as an AI model. I would just let the model define this parameter. So I could just click this spangled star sort of icon here, and it would automatically be defined by the model what message it needs. It would understand, essentially, it would understand what we are trying to do, and it would populate the message automatically. Role of user is fine. Okay. Role of absolutely fine. No, I don't want to simplify the output. Okay. You have other options where you can actually specify different parameters. So you could specify the top probability, return images, things like that. But what we really want is, okay, the recency filter, which essentially means what data or what time period of data it should analyze. Okay, so should it be from the past year, from the past month, from the past week? So if you're given something like past year to this year, remember it will take a long time and it will probably be very expensive. So I'm not going to take that much data. I'll just take I'll just click on search recency filter, and a month of data is enough. Okay. Um, so later when you try your own flows, feel free to choose whatever you want there, right? And I think we are done with the setup. Let us go back to the canvas here, right? Okay. Now this is connected. Let me just make sure I have connected OpenAI's GPT 4.1 mini model, which is fine. Just me do a save. All that remains that I need to change the input sheets here. Okay, so let me just click on this and I'll show you which sheet I mean by that. Okay, so the sheet that I have in mind is called investments. Okay, and then as I mentioned, I've just mentioned two rows. Uh, I'm feeling a bit stingy and I don't want to uh, run out of run a deep hole in my pocket. Okay, so let's just choose two: Bajaj Hindustan Sugar Limited and Automotive Stampings and Assembly. So this is what we'll be providing to the Perplexity tool. Let's continue with our configuration there. Okay, so I'll click on input stocks. Right, you can ignore what is on the left hand, right hand side. This was from the previous execution flow that we did. And from the list, okay, since I'm using the same account, okay, this should actually bring up the sheet that I've already created, and it's the same. The sheet name is the same. Document is investments. Other things remain the same. Let me go back to my canvas and on the append update row, right? Let me double click it and do the same thing here. Let me just Oh, right. From the list, document should be investments. Okay, I already opened that. I don't know what happened there. Okay, let me just second list. Investments, yeah, this takes you to that link, to that sheet directly. Okay, that's what happened. So the sheet name, just one sheet there, and I'll map each column as I did previously. Okay. Since I don't want to run this again and again because it is expensive because I've ran it before, I know exactly what should come in each column here, what the mapping should be, and I'll populate it. Uh, in your case, you might want to try it once before so that you can see what happens on the left hand side. By try it once, I mean you just need to click on the execute step. It will run all the steps. It will bring populate uh, what its findings on the left hand side, and based on what it has returned, you can populate your middle pane here. Yeah, the values to send to the output here. Since I've already done it, okay, I'm just going to write the expressions here. So I populated my mappings here, and you can see something is in red. It is in red because it is trying to take this data from the previous execution flow. It does not know. We have not executed this step now. It does not know that it will get this data. But since I've executed it before, I know that this is what will come. Okay, so this is fine. There, JSON.output. The other expressions remain pretty much the same because we are using a hash to populate whether it should avoid, whether we should buy it or not, and we are just evaluating it at true or false conditions and populating the output columns accordingly. Okay, let me go back to the canvas here. Okay, and let me just try running this key, and I do a save and I execute the workflow. As you can see, this will take some time. It will do a deep research. So let's wait it out. And it took around 10 to 15 minutes for this flow to get executed correctly. By the way, I had run into an error, which I'll just quickly mention. So if you remember, one of the items, which was the stock name, was in red because I'd got it a little wrong there. Um, so just what I did is, after the error popped up, I just dragged it from the left hand side. So I just went into here, the input stocks, expanded this drop down, and I just dragged this thing, the stock name, into this field here. Okay, and I just ran the execute step again, uh, which would just execute this step because essentially it has got all the data it needed in the previous step, so it's not going to execute the whole flow again. So it will just execute this step, and that's how I got the output. And now let us just have a look at the Google Sheet there. And while let me move my video here, and you can see, yeah, the two things have been populated. It gives, I think, a lot more financial details on why something, on why it generated the findings that it did. So that's its reasoning here. And it definitely says avoid and sell. We have got avoid and sell, and the second one is also avoid and sell. So I'm not going through the details there. Uh, and I think with that, we have come to the end of this demo. And with this, we have reached the end of this session. I really hope that this video will help you build up your prospects in the stock market world. Now, is this the only way you can do it? Definitely not. There are other models, there are other ways, there are other tools. And even with what we have done using n8n, there you can do a mix and match of different models of different tools to get a better result there. So this should only be treated as a guide, but I am certain that this kind of tools will help you analyze and understand the stock market before you invest your hard-earned wealth on it. And if you did like my work, okay, please do like and subscribe. And so till we meet again, adios.